Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear Danny. Should we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today, where it's Friday, of course. Everyone knows the lyrics, gotta get down on Friday. I don't know where I was going with this. Yeah, you might be like, hey, has your Dungeon Master Guide and Monster Manual and your new water bottle arrived yet? No, actually, they said they're out for delivery today, but they haven't arrived yet. And I don't know, Amazon's not really letting me track it properly. Like I can track my package and it just goes out for delivery. I don't know if it's out any closer, because sometimes you click on it and it's just like, oh, it's X many stops away or something like that. But I can't really see that. It just says out for delivery. It was out for delivery this morning, which in a place which is not that close to me, which so I'm a bit surprised. But you know, I guess postal officers go kind of all over the country. But anyway, hello everyone. Right now in Fawnhollow, 6:09 p.m. on Friday, January 5th, 2024. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to talk about today. Well, what's on my mind? I don't know. It's a weekend, you know. But I think this weekend, more than a lot of the previous weekends, I'm like, I really want to just like play some games with my friends. I don't know if that's silly to say or something. Because obviously I love my friends, and, you know, I love playing games with them that sort of time. But I don't know. You just like this weekend, it feels like more than ever. You know, I had a stronger itch than I recently remember. Being like, what do I want to play? I don't know what I want to play though, to be perfectly honest. I don't even know if I actually do. Maybe hold on. I don't mean it like that. Like, I don't want to play games with my friends. Of course I do. I mean like in the sense where I feel like the urge is stronger. And I think it's probably because Northern Lion's playing so much Lethal Company. It's him playing it somehow is saving me from the fact that like it's not stagnating it in my mind as much when I play it. Maybe I'm on something. Maybe let her cook. You know, maybe that's, you know, one of the contributing factors to me like following. Like I always use Among Us as a reference. Like I don't mean to use it as like a sort of like a scapegoat for like, this is what happens when I don't like playing games anymore or something like that, because that's obviously it's dependent on a lot of different contexts and factors in the first place that I feel like is reductive to talk about that. Oh, you know what I can talk about? Because now I'm like, we talked about games so much. Like, oh man, gaming channel, we talk about games. How could we? But anyone seen the Arcane Season 2 first look? Oh, that's I could also talk about this. There's a new character in League of Legends who's been teased. I forgot his name now. It's like Scorch or something, but it's not. Scorch doesn't sound right. Smolder, that's it. It was something along those lines. Which I also think is in the name of that dragon character in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Let me see. My Little Pony Smolder. The orange one, right? Yeah, that's her name. I don't know why I remember that. But I do. I just thought you'd like to know that, to be perfectly honest. Which I guess makes sense, because Smolder's like a small fire, and you know, she was also like a child dragon in that show or something. Or like a teen dragon? Honestly, I don't remember. Yeah, I guess a teen dragon, because I guess they were kind of like in the equivalent of high school, now I think about it. Anyway, that's not my point. We're here to talk about the new one. And it's interesting, you know. And I sometimes talk about League of Legends news, I suppose, here and there. Like, I remember I talked a lot about Seraphine on her release. No, normally I only tend to bring it up, I suppose, in videos when it's very dramatic, I suppose. Otherwise, I'll be like, oh, do you see the new character? Pretty cool. And that's about it. There's a lot more drama, I suppose, about this character's visual appeal, I suppose. I don't think it's quite as extreme as Seraphine's case. Man, Seraphine's case was crazy. I think I even made 2 videos about talking about Seraphine, like my own thoughts on her design. I don't know why I did that, to be perfectly honest. Like, I have my thoughts, of course, of these characters, but take everything I say with a grain of salt. I'm not like a professional designer or anything, and all my thoughts are, well, everyone's thoughts kind of inherently subjective, I suppose. So I don't really have much basis to talk about things, but I just try and explain my own reasoning. So, I mean, while I'm not a professional designer, I have design experience, so it's not like it's coming from devoid of nothing. Anyway, so there's this new character, Smolder. You can go look him up if you want, or don't, I suppose. It's kind of up to you, to be perfectly honest. And his design is interesting. I tend to hesitate on saying designs are straight up bad, because inherently, like I say this a lot about art is inherently subjective, and I feel like the definition of good versus bad tends to get misconstrued between what I think is a more appropriate definition of good and bad. Like, good and bad as in objectively. Sorry about that, a little bit of a jump cut. I don't remember exactly what I was saying, but I remember I was, in general, talking about Smolder, the new champion. I don't know even if I got into any points, like, regarding talking about him. But it's interesting. Oh yeah, I was saying there's multiple sort of like dimensions of good and bad. There's like well executed, poorly executed, like on a technical level, and there's good and bad as in like I like it, I don't like it, and there's good and bad as in appropriate and not appropriate for whatever the purpose is. And Smolder is something I think it's hard to say if it's good or bad, because I think that's one very subjective. I certainly can say that a lot of people find his design kind of uncanny. I'm not sure if I find him as much uncanny as I find a little bit strange. Like he kind of looks like he's like in a Western animated kids show is probably how I'd put it. He gives me that sort of vibes, which you might be like, that's good, right? Isn't that kind of what it's going for? And it's like, sort of, but I the thing about it is that like it feels safe, kind of. Like it doesn't like I don't want to hate on the people who design, because obviously they've done good. I think it's technically well executed and that sort of thing. It's just it's something about the design does not grab me, is probably what I'd say. And I think it's because of the slightly human-esque face, the slightly sort of like you ever look up the sky all the time, like Disney-esque, like My Little Pony, you know, while we're talking about sort of face. Like if it actually, that's an interesting one. If this character was in the newest generation of My Little Pony, I don't think I'd bat an eye. I'd be like, he looks like he fits right in. And it's a thing with these animalistic characters is it's in the eyes, which is, you know, maybe strange to say, but when you give animals, I suppose, like the whites of the eyes, like a visible sclera, or whatever it's called, I think it very much changes the feel of like the impression of an animal. It makes them very like, it sort of unexpectedly skews them really high on the sort of like anthropomorphization scale. Like it puts them far closer to humans, because there's not many animals which you visibly see like the whites of their eyes, if at all. Like I'm trying to think, like dogs you can sometimes, I think. Hold on, let me see. Dog eyes. Yeah, dogs do have whites of eyes, but the thing is that irises are like huge. They take up like the majority of, I don't know what the visible part of the eye is called, but most of that compared to humans, where, you know, you get a lot more visibility in the sclera out the sides. And you notice it, I suppose, a lot with like Disney characters, especially when they're very Disney animals, as you tend to see a lot of their whites of the eyes, which tends to make them look very anthropomorphized, I think, compared to usual, I suppose. But with Disney characters, either they lean very hard, I suppose, into the anthropomorphization. That's such a difficult word to say. With like Zootopia, Zootropolis, you know, they have very human, no, not very human, but very sort of like human civilization-esque sort of characters. Or they go in the other direction, where they're like basically animals. Apologies, and have a jump cut. That was actually the delivery this time, so speak of a devil, here it is. But basically what I was trying to say is, when you give, at least to me, I feel like subconsciously, when I see when I see eyes, I suppose, on like an animated character or whatever, and I see the whites of the eyes, but sort of subconsciously in your brain goes humanoid or humanesque, right? Which doesn't mean that intrinsically makes whatever design you have look like a human, or I suppose more like a human. But I think that's sort of subconsciously you go, those are human eyes. Or very human-esque eyes. And it can work well on very sort of animalistic bodies, and it can work pretty well, very well on much more humanoid animalistic bodies, and much more, well, humans, shall we say. Like examples, like obviously, like take Simba from Lion King. You can see the whites of his eyes very prominently, but he's very, very clearly reads as a lion. It's just the eyes which read as a bit more humanoid. If anything, it just kind of anthropomorphizes him more, rather than making him more like an animal who we can't communicate with, I suppose, on the human level. Now it's in like I don't want to say like sentient or sapient, because I feel like that makes it seem like lions can't think, which is not exactly what I mean, but like human level sapience, I suppose, for that animal. And then when it's on the much more anthropomorphized characters like Nick Wilde or Judy Hopps, I think, from Zootopia, then it seems to make sense. It's like we're so humanize them in the first place. They're basically humans with like an animal skin and with like an animal shaped head, which I think lends well together. There's a weird sort of in between, like the uncanny valley of anthropomorphization, which I think Smolder kind of falls in, which makes it feel strange, at least in his initial teaser when I saw him. I think it's a combination of the fact that his head shape is not that animalistic. It's still quite, it looks kind of human, just like with, I mean, like the bottom half. The top half is, you know, quite dragonistic. He's got like these big sort of ears, he's got these horns and scales. But then when you go to a lower face, it's a very sort of peach pale sort of skin colour, which makes it look, I think in my eyes, far more human than it intends to. And he's got like a sort of small button nose, like quite literally like a My Little Pony nose. And of course with the human eyes and with the very sort of human mouth, he reads as very, very human. He reads as like, to me, like a human child with like a dragon headset on, I guess, or a dragon like crown thing on, which I'm not sure, maybe that's what they're going for, which is perfectly fine if that's what they're going for. I can't imagine that necessarily is what they wanted. I think what they wanted was to have a cute looking dragons. What's a baby dragon called? I don't even know if there's an official term, which is interesting. Which is where I think the design sort of falls a little bit flat. Is I think the sort of the dissonance between what he actually looks like and what the expectation, a reasonable expectation, I feel like, of what he should look like. And I feel like saying should is a bit strong there. Like, is there something which is like a law which is like Smolder must look like this? No, of course that's not what I mean, but like I mean the player expectation, because League of Legends is an established world already, the world of Runeterra, and dragons make up quite a big part of it. Especially we have dragons like in League of Legends, they're part of one of the mobs, you can say. We have dragon champion already, we have a Radiant Soul, we have Shyvana. We kind of like have an established look of what dragons should look like, and we have like baby dragons as well, to be fair, in skins, like in Dragon Tamer, Tristana, Dragon is it Dragon Train? No. Dragon Tamer? Dragon Trainer? Whatever the Heimerdinger one is called. Probably Dragon Tamer now I think about it. Heimerdinger, we've seen baby dragons. You might argue, hey, that's not technically canon Runeterra. Fair enough, actually. That's a good point. But at least it gives a sort of preempted notion of what to expect when it comes to like a baby Runeterra dragon. Like most people will have like an imagination of what it entails, and this sort of feels very different. It feels like he's from a different world, I guess, which is why it feels so dissonantly strange, I think, seeing it, which is why I think by itself, my first reaction was, whoa, that was not what I expected, especially because there's a doodle beforehand where he looks like a full-on like scale head dragon. Seeing like his actual model made me go strange, but on further reflection I thought about it a bit more and I was like, it's more just like it doesn't feel like it fits with Runeterra, I think. At least me personally thinking that. But on seeing like his ability preview, I kind of see what they're going for now. At least when I see it more. And if it's going to be the strangest thing, I think he looks relatively normal when he stands on both his hind legs. So basically what I guess is, I feel like why I had this whole bit about the uncanny valley of anthropomorphization, I think he kind of fell into that uncanny valley, like quite near the bottom. Quite near the trough of the uncanny valley between Humanesque and Animalesque. And to make it fit better to make it feel less uncanny, it needs to commit more on one side or the other. So if I were to change his design, which I don't think necessarily Riot will change it that much. I think if they're going to change anything, they might change the like scale color of the peachy skin color to maybe something a bit more like reddish orangey, is my guess. But if I were to change it, I think one of the best things they could do is change his eyes to be less like white. You don't see the whites of his eyes. Give him the dragon eyes, you know, give him the yellow, complete yellow sclera and the slit black pupil. You don't even have to make it a slit if you want to make him cute. You can keep him as round circles and that would still look equally cute, I think. And then just basically make him feel more dragonesque, which is probably the more popular decision, I would say, and like change that peach color to maybe something a bit less humanesque, I would say, and it probably reads a lot less like a human. I think it'd be really difficult to change the model shape, which is why I'm only suggesting things which change like the skin of a model. Like maybe you could extend the snout a bit more, maybe you could change the mouth shape in like an ideal world, but I don't think you'd be able to be perfectly honest. But I think what you could also do is you can get some scales. Let's see, Smolder League of Legends. Let me see his model. You can get some scales. Like this is a cheat sheet, I suppose. if you're anthropomorphizing like a Dragoness character, get those blue scales like Trimsy's got, and give him like freckle scales or something like on his cheek. I don't know. It's just, there's parts of it I like, and there's parts of it which feel awkward, I suppose, when I look at it. And you might be like, hey, what about Yumi? You know, she's got like a whites of eyes thing as well, and she's like a full-on animal, but she doesn't feel uncanny. She feels very Disney-esque, I suppose, in the correct way. But that's because Yumi leans very hard into the, like, she's an animal, straight up animal thing. I suppose there's sort of like a disconnect here with Smolder, of course, being a dragon, a fictional, you know, fictional species in the first place, which makes it like, we don't have a preconceived notion we do have a preconceived notion of what a dragon looks like, but we don't have like an instinctual notion of what a dragon looks like as much as you might do for a cat or something. That's my guess. but there's parts of it I like the take on his big sort of floppy ears. Like, there's another thing I said. He kind of reminded me of like a gremlin, which is an interesting take. How long have I been talking about this? This video is like split up into so many things now. I'm going to get very confused. Let's just sit down and talk. And this is not a walk around sort of video. I like his big like floppy ears, and I like his like horns and that sort of thing. Like I like a lot of his like bat-esque, cat-esque design. That's what I was going to say when I was at Solve Ability Rundown. When I saw his model in action, I'm like, I see what they're kind of going for. I think they're making him. They're drawing a lot of sort of like cat-esque, like domesticated pet qualities to him to make him read much more cute than just baby dragon itself, which I think kind of works which is why I say it kind of works, I think, in game, because you don't really see his face all that much in game from the top, not quite top down, 3/4 angle you see in League of Legends. So you just get a sort of general vibe of his shape, and of course he's got very sort of animalistic-esque movements. A lot of the time he reads as a baby dragon, and when he's got an idle animation where he's sort of like standing upright, and he also does it on his ultimate where he calls for his mother, where he leans into much more like human styling, where he stands on his hind legs. So I'm like, okay, then that works. You see his face, and he looks like a lot more human, I suppose, of that sort of thing. But he's also posed a lot more human-esque, so it does like with Zootopia effect, where I think it reads a lot better in that sense as well, and it doesn't look uncanny. But it's when it's in the in-between, it looks a bit weird. Like, there's a frame at the end of his shot, like his teaser shot, where he's like breathing fire like at the viewer, I suppose, and that looks the most uncanny. That very much looks like a human child with like a dragon like face paint on. But yeah, so there's parts of it like I like the sort of cat-esque, bat-esque morphology that they've put into him, because I think that's an interesting like stylization of dragons. And I'm not saying that dragons need to inherently stick to whatever the fantasy tropes are of dragons, to be perfectly honest. But I will say it's not as like out there as I would have expected. From League of Legends. Well, okay, maybe not from League of Legends, because League of Legends does, as a big corporation, they tend to, I'm sure, favour playing safe, I suppose, with designs and that sort of thing. But I feel like we could have pushed the envelope a little bit more. It's like the same thing I said with Lilia. It was like, I don't hate the idea of a Centaur character. I don't even hate it that she's like sort of very fey and very cutesy, but I'm like, you could have pushed it a bit more, I think. Like, obviously, probably at some point during like focus group testing, we were like, oh no, we can't go that far because like, you know, people won't like it, that sort of thing. We got to reel it back in. But it's just like, I guess it's just kind of disappointing in a sense. So I don't hate his design. Again, the only thing I think I would change is probably make it, I either change the colour of his like skin-esque tone colour, or I would change his eye colour to be something less human-esque. But I don't know, that's just me. I'm also not a professional designer, so of course take everything I say with a grain of salt. I still think he's well executed, but I think there's a weird incongruence between what we expect dragons to look like in League of Legends and what this character looks like, which makes it feel weird. Because this is probably maybe one of the first times we've seen a canon baby dragon character, and I'm trying to think of his others, but there might be, but I can't really think off the top of my head. I don't know if they should go the full like bestial route with a dragon. I don't think that's what they're going for with his character, so I don't think it necessarily fits as well. But they obviously want a sort of like element of humanization to him, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like when I saw Yumi, I was like, that's like, I think well designed character. She looks straight out like a Disney movie or something like that. This character, I feel like maybe more straight out of like a DreamWorks movie, which I'm not saying is necessarily bad or anything, but that's not really the style. I guess this is the first character I'd be like, feels like we're from a DreamWorks movie, while all the other characters I feel like feel very Disney-esque, which makes it feel a bit strange, I suppose, in that regard. No. It's just a different style, I suppose. So I don't know. We'll see if they change it or not. I will say he's got an interesting head shape where he is, which makes it interesting. Oh, I also thought he looked very sort of like Ratchet-esque from like Ratchet. Sorry, not the slang, but like Ratchet and Clank. But long backs, that's what they're called, especially when he was standing on like his two hind legs. And I was like, oh, okay. That's why I was just like, I can see what they're going for. Like, I think it works better like that, but I don't know. Your mileage may vary. Anyway, his kit looks quite fun, is what I'd say. I love the fact that I think it's a unique personality in League of Legends. I don't think there's not many like child-esque characters. Sorry, he kind of reminds me of like Simba from Lion King, I'd say, in personality, which is I think is unique. I don't think we have a character like that with personality-wise. So yeah, I don't hate it, I would say. I think it kind of goes with a lot of like League of Legends designs at the end of the day for me, especially ones which end up being controversial. It's like, I think they're cool, but I wish they would have pushed it more in a lot of cases. I guess it's a sort of thing where like it's a two sides of a coin thing. Like, they have so much money, of course they can afford to like push it further and do wild and crazy things. They've got like a huge safety net. They've got the funding to experiment and pull things off. But also it's like, they're still a massive corporation. They want things to be safe. They got to please the stakeholders. So of course they're going to play it safe and that sort of thing. Which I don't know. There's a dichotomy there which has no solution, I think, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, I mean, just looks to be seen. Normally, when there's big community outrage, I suppose, about this sort of thing, right is pretty good at being responsive. I will absolutely give him credit to that. Like, I feel like people hate on. I mean, there are reasons to hate on Riot, especially with like their work culture and whether it actually ended up fixing it or not. Who knows? But I mean, from the art department, like from a communications department, like one of the game companies who actually communicates the most with their community. Perfect, I would say. So maybe they listen to feedback, maybe they don't. I don't know. I'm just kind of interested to see where it goes. And there's my very subjective thoughts on exactly what I think about this character. And anyway, if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time. Bye bye for now.